You're listening to Rock at Night.
Are you ready? Hey, tonight I'm gonna take you on a little trip. We're going down south by the mighty Mississippi. I'm gonna take you to a place where lights never dim. Bring your mother, your brother, and your best friend. I'm gonna show you where they dance out in the street. They'll tell you all about your body heat. I'm not gonna talk about it, just gonna do it. Get on down, if you feel good now. Get on down.
This is Charisse with Rock at Night magazine, and today we are going to speak with composer, author, photographer, and, of course, guitarist with the band Police, Andy Summers. He was inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2003. He won a Grammy twice for Best Rock Instrumental Performance, 1979, Regatta de Blanc, and Behind My Camel, 1980. His photographs have been shown in galleries throughout the world, and he's written several books, one including One Train Later. And if you haven't seen his documentary, it's great. It's on Amazon Prime. It's called Can't Stand Losing You, Surviving the Police. So today we're going to talk first about his tour. It's called the Cracked Lens and a Missing String Tour. What can you tell me about the tour, and what will someone expect? Let's say if they go to a show, what will they see?
They can expect to have a good time, and they have a nice surprise. They haven't seen me quite in this context before. This show is, I guess, what would be called multimedia. It's film, photographs, photography, music, obviously, and but when I say spoken word, it's me like ad-libbing on stage. I have several stories that I tell, so it's pretty full. But essentially, the show, the photography and the music. I have several photographic sequences that I play different kinds of music to throughout the show with my electric guitar and all the beautiful effects, and some solo, some with backing tracks. There's a few Police songs in there that have been rearranged for this especially. So that's what it is. It's me playing to these visuals that I've shot all over my life and strung together in all these sequences, along with some spoken stories that usually go down a storm. Very funny. That's what it is. So we've had a very successful tour, and this section in Florida is the last three shows of this year anyway. So yeah.
I looked it up. You haven't been in Florida since 1988. That's a long time.
Well, I mean, I think I played there with the Police. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, in Miami.
We played with the Police. I individually haven't. I mean, I toured the States a lot on my own in those days. So yeah, that could have been the time. But I played all through the 90s as well. And I've never stopped actually until the pandemic hit. And before the pandemic hit, I was actually doing this show, this multimedia show. It's gotten much more sophisticated now. My last show before this was at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, which was kind of a thrill, and we sold that out. And then, the pandemic struck, and so just like many performers, I'm just really getting back to it. So but it does, I agree with you. I mean, I've been out actually in America, the United States, playing in cities all across the country since July, on and off. And it does seem like a long time to me since I was out actually doing this and sort of proving. But being a stage performer is a pretty addictive thing, and I enjoy it. But I don't go out for too long at any one point. 5 or 6 shows, then stop, come home for a bit, then go back out. That's how we've done it. But I've played all across the US since July.
Well, you live in California, correct?
Yep. Yes, I do. I live in Los Angeles.
And you've been in California a long time. I notice a lot of the British musicians all live there.
Yeah, it's a huge British influx here. People go, why are you living in California? I go, why are you living in London? Try it.
I figured it's the weather, maybe, or
yeah, it's a different
The
life.
industry?
Well, the industry is here. That's really true. There's a lot of contact. It's a great place to live.
Mhm.
Weather is fabulous, although actually it's raining right now, which is pretty unusual. It's like the start of winter. Yeah, I was here in my early 20s and I went to college here and lived here for a while. So it's kind of ingrained in my soul somewhat. I'm basically half English, half Californian at this point.
Yeah, I saw that you went in the 60s to California and you were there during the heyday, right? Late
Well,
60s?
sort of a heyday of that particular, the
I mean,
culture.
psychedelic California?
Absolutely. It was a fantastic time to be here. And I guess that's where my head got turned. I did go back to England, but then turned around and came back and lived here for a while, about 5 years, and then went back to London and was in the police for about 15 years. And then ultimately after that, I don't know, I got a bee in my bonnet and I thought, I'm going back to LA.
Let's go back to storytelling. You are so good at writing stories. I've seen your documentary. You have books and you take photographs. It seems like you're just a natural storyteller.
Yeah, I guess so, because I have actually done it. I mean, I wrote my own sort of autobiography. It took me a couple of years to put that together, but I very much got into writing with that. And I was involved with a lot of writers at that time. I mean, I'm a person who is a totally avid reader. I'm never without a book. So I do love literature. Then it sort of came to me at that point after the police, like, I should write an autobiography. And so I got to it. And it took a while to get it really right. There's a lot of techniques involved, as well as trying to write really well. But I did it. And, in my life, personally, I get asked to write a lot of essays, lots of things for magazines all around the world. So I'm very used to, you got to write something, and I do. So I'm sort of half the time I'm a writer as well, because it's just because I'm a well-known person and I'm articulate. I expected to write stuff for people, which I'm always happy to do. And then I wrote the book of short stories, and I've got another one ready to go, which we'll see what happens next year. But trying to put another one together. No, I enjoy it, and blah blah blah.
I figured you either have a good memory or you used to keep a diary.
I haven't been much of a journal writer, and although I guilt trip myself early on in life, that I should be writing all this down all the time, but I never did, really. I never did, but I do have a very good memory. But the one kind of journal thing I think I've had since I started with the police was being a photographer. So I've photographed so much stuff. I have a vast archive, which actually serves as a journal of all these times. And, I'd look at that, I go, oh yeah, I remember that. And that was in Austria, and it was whatever.
So it's a photographic diary, basically.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Your photography, of course, you started in film. Do you do digital now?
I do. But, I say that with no shame, because, there's this big sort of guilt. Oh, you should be shooting film. Hey, man, I shot film forever. My last go with film was in 2012. And I traveled all across Asia, almost every country, for about 3 weeks. And I shot 90 rolls of film. It was a real hassle, and I lost a couple along the way, going through airport scanners and all that. And like literally the day I got back to the US, they announced the digital Leica. God, I wish you'd given it to me 3 weeks earlier. So, yeah, no, ultimately we all like the film look, but I mean, there's so many tricks with digital now. It's sort of insane to go against the grain. And also, I just on a very practical level, I've spoken to some kids about this who want to be people who shoot film. It's very expensive now to process.
Where do you even send them? The labs, where are they?
Do it anymore. I did it for all my life, and that when we went digital, there it is.
Because times have changed. Do you do editing too? Do you use programs like Lightroom, or what do you like to do as far as processing your pictures?
Well, I use Photoshop to get it in there, and I mean, basically with a Leica camera, they come out very well. but we raise the level. And yeah, I don't mess with my photographs much because I like to shoot them in a way that they don't need it. I mean, you can occasionally go, "Oh God, I wish that white blob wasn't in the corner. Let's make it black like the rest of the thing there." Tiny things like that. But I don't. I edit. The way I work is I have a pretty good setup. I have someone who works with me. You shoot on film cards. I hand them over. They get put down in the big computer. Then they come back to me, and I look through them, and I select out of the various cards that have been returned to me, what's worthwhile, which might be of interest. So I think about it in a lot of different ways, and I've got a very good way of. I've got words. I've got over 100 words that I use to describe a photograph. It could be as simple as cloud, white, sky, whatever. It could have several words. But this way, I can go in and find things very easily. It's incredible compared to the old days. So I've got an amazing library of all sorts of material that I access very easily.
I saw a real interesting picture that you took. I think it was during Semana Santa in Spain. There were a bunch of hooded people. It looked pretty creepy.
Well, it's not creepy, actually. I mean, it looks creepy. I mean, I used that one shot. I mean, it's just been on the cover of The Guardian in England, actually, that particular picture you're talking about.
They kind of look like KKK people.
Some of them took, which is debatable. But it's a very powerful shot because those guys that you see in the black hoods, it's during a week called Semana Santa. It's the religious week at the end of April. And they're all over the place, and they march together, and they wear the black hoods, and they're called Nazarenos. So this particular night came, and it's an incredible thing to go. I was in Seville in the south of Spain. They play this with them as the band marching, playing the Spanish funeral music. It's religious. And so I had an incredible night or a few nights following them and taking pictures of them, and that one I got down on the ground, they stopped, and I managed to get that amazing shot. That's an incredible time to go there, and I want to go again, do it again.
I like that picture. I also like what I call your raw pictures from the 80s, meaning the ladies that are in the hotel room and just showing sex, drugs, and rock and roll kind of thing. You had some. That's what I call raw because it's
what's around
the news and stuff. I love those.
I'm at home with my wife is present, so.
Well, it's art. To me, it's art.
Well, it is art. Yeah, I mean,
but it's authentic.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Any of my pictures, I'm not into that. It's all friendly, super friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on AI? All these software programs use AI now.
Yeah, well, it's getting I'm scared of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared of the future a little bit, where it's going, because I don't think we've got that long. I mean, all this stuff. We all know all this stuff. It's terrifying. One day the so-called robots take over. It's just such a cliche, but I just don't understand this compulsion for to destroy it, to become a secondary species and then get wiped out. That's what seems to be. You can read so much stuff into this. I mean, I love all the conveniences of the things that you can do now, and it's pretty incredible. But there is a dark side to it, because you just don't know what the truth is anymore about anything, because everything is so easily manipulated now. And being a person from another generation, you start looking backwards fondly at where you came from, when I don't know, things seemed a lot simpler. But that sounds like someone who's grown up, talking, instead of a young person might be have a very different attitude. But I do think it's inherently threatening. I mean, it is such a science fiction cliche, but we're probably only about 5 years away from it.
Yeah, some of the pictures that I've seen look seamless. You can't tell if someone's head has been superimposed or not, and that could be pretty dangerous for sure.
yeah, it is. It is. That sort of side of it is incredibly insidious, and everything is in a real bad
Mhm.
way now, and it's hard to, keep your faith, watching the news, watching what's going on in this country, what's going on in the Middle East. It's terrifying, and the Middle East thing is terrifying because it seems like a sort of biblical prophecy to me that this is where it's all going to go down finally, and it'll be right there in Israel and Palestine.
It's almost very sci-fi, but it could be a reality in the future where machines take over.
Well, it is. It's such a cliche, and we've been reading about
Yeah.
it since the day we were born, but unfortunately, it's coming true. I don't know. I mean, it's a deep subject, and there are people,
Yeah.
real scientists and all that, that's far into it. I mean, but I haven't.
Mm-hmm.
I've read positive reports, I've read negative reports, but I mean, it's brilliant that mankind is able to take technology this far, but it does seem it's.
Mhm.
I mean, there are stories about this that we're taking ourselves down as we do it. Yeah.
Well, I notice a lot of jobs have been replaced. Going to the store now, everything's self-checkout. Like, where did the people go?
I know, and I don't like it. I walk in,
I don't either.
Oh God! Oh, you go to the airport. You got to get a ticket. I'm like, hello, how are you today? It's a flight on time. Just stupid stuff. But Christ, yes, it's gotten very impersonal. The only good side about that is coming in back into the US or like Canada where I just was. You virtually just walk straight through, and now they look at your face and that's it. On the machine. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to be born around now because I think the world, I mean, I've put a horrible perspective on it, but the world in the future seems fairly terrifying to me.
I wanted to ask a couple of things about the police, and yourself too. You were established way before you even entered the police. You were a blues artist. You had been around for a while.
Well, I wasn't really a blues artist, but my story is unusual because I was in bands when I first started, and I was playing in London. I was completely in the scene, and then I basically left and I came to America. I was in another band, the Animals, and I got seduced by LA and California, and I stayed. Well, I went to college is what I did. I basically just went to college, and I ended up spending about 5.5 years in LA. And then went back to London, but I was a very good player, and people remember. I remember the time I went back to London, and it was a harsh reality after living in California. And I had to sort of get back into the scene, but most people remembered me at least because I'd been in a very popular band, and I gradually started to. Be known everywhere. And I started to get invited to do all sorts of things just as a guitar player. And then the odd thing was I sort of threw it all to one side and joined this so-called punk band called The Police.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about the word punk. Okay, because I lived during this time period. In fact, The Police was the first concert I went to where I wrote a live review and was published in the college newspaper. I actually saw you guys. I remember that it was October 27th, 1979. And would you believe it was Disney World?
Oh, I remember that gig. Yeah, we came up the thing. It was insulting, but they paid us so much money. By our then standards, they paid us $8,000, and we couldn't even believe it. It was like we'd made it. The rainbow had come our way. It was amazing, but of course, it was fucking stupid. It was Disney World, and it was coming up in that.
I was shocked. I know, because I had read earlier in that year. I used to, read Cream magazine, Rolling Stone. I was waiting for The Police to come, and then they had this big Halloween thing at Disney World. They had Dr. Hook, they had Sea Level. And then when I saw Police, it's like, I am so there. So I went to Orlando, and you guys played in Tomorrowland Terrace. I'm 17 years old.
Right.
And I couldn't believe the stage was like a foot high, and there weren't that many people. But
there weren't.
I was like the only one dancing.
Yeah, we couldn't believe we were playing at Disneyland, but we did it for the money because $8,000 then was like gigantic to
Yeah.
us. It was like the most money we'd ever earned in our life. Couldn't even believe it. So that's why we did it. You know, we had
Well,
a date.
I don't blame you. I mean, it was for me, I remembered that gig my entire life because it
Yeah.
was so special to me and it kind of launched my whole
Yeah,
music
Band Like the Police
journalism career.
didn't really go with Disneyland, but whatever, you know.
Just know that it meant a lot to me and I have all the albums and I wanted to ask you about some of the stuff on Outlandos D'Amour and the whole punk thing. When you guys came over, you were called punk, but you weren't really punk.
No, we weren't. We never were.
Because to us, punk was Sex Pistols and protest music and spitting and, you know, everything that we had heard about. And we didn't have the YouTube at that time period. So we only had magazines and albums at that time period. And we kind of, and I say we, meaning my friends, we kind of put you into the new wave category.
And that's what we thought we were. It
And
suited us to be in
yeah.
America and be called New Wave. It didn't suit us to be in London, and no one thought we were punk, and so we couldn't get a gig.
Well, in 79, the Knack came out. Blondie was big. Devo was hot. It was all B-52s. That was all considered new wave. And your music was complex. It wasn't simple like, you know, pogo dancing, jumping up and down. You had like kind of arabesque melodies and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was a really highly musical band.
Yeah.
Band. It sounded like anybody else.
And that's what we liked about it. And back then, we used to like to go out dancing, and you could dance to every song. And for my 18th birthday, all we did was play Regatta de Blanc and, you know, Outlandos D'Amour, all the Police albums. And because I noticed you to have a lot of arabesque kind of sounding stuff, like Zenyatta Mondatta is one. Mother, there's kind of an arabesque kind of thing in there. But how the heck did Mother come about?
Well, I was sort of listening a lot to Captain Beefheart in those days. And, you know, it was a little bit of an influence on me. That's why I wrote it in a kind of provocative subject matter. I was scared to play it to my own mother, but she just laughed. She thought it was hilarious.
When I first heard it, I was thinking of Tommy and Keith Moon, Uncle Ernie, you know, kind of that wild, you know, sound or whatever. And Behind Your Camel, that sounds very Middle Eastern. You must have a real love for that kind of sound, or what can you tell me about that?
A little bit kind of quirky melody and different for the Police. I mean, the way we worked, you know, Sting was the principal songwriter because he would only sing what he could sing. And so Stuart and I would get at least one track on each album. Sometimes there were collaborations. But I was into much stranger music naturally. You know, I liked things like Captain Beefheart and jazz, all kinds of stuff, and not straight ahead pop. And so I came up with that one, which is really well constructed and interesting, and it's in 7/4 time. Plus, I did the vocal on it. You know, when we handed it over to A&M, of course, they were in a slight state of shock hearing a song like that in the middle, but it was actually very hip. Sting liked it. He liked it, actually.
Especially at that time period, you guys were the only band that sings genres, you know, throwing in like a little Caribbean sound or...
Oh, that gets overplayed a bit. Yeah, we did all kinds of things. That's what made the band what it was. You know, both Sting and I came from sort of jazz backgrounds. Sting was, we were both into all stuff, other stuff as well. You know, I mean, we had the knowledge of blues and jazz and pop music, Beatles, all of it. You know, we were pretty schooled players. And, but what it was the unique chemistry that the three of us seemed to make. You know, you can't just... Yeah, people say, "Oh, I could have done that." No, you couldn't. No, you couldn't. You didn't have a drummer, a guitar player, or a singer like that. You couldn't. It was a one-off, and that's why it's still going so strong.
I think that's why there's lasting power to it. So I don't want to keep you much longer. Is there anything that you would want people to know about the show or anything about your current work?
Well, I think the show is kind of where I'm at now, and it's an enjoyable experience. I mean, it goes down every night. The audience are out of their seats at the end, so it's a lot of guitar playing, a lot of photography, some pretty amusing stories. You know, it's pretty full on. So I don't think there's anything else out there quite like this at the moment. So it's definitely worth your time. If you could put in 2 hours, I usually do about 2 hours, which they're saying is too long. They're telling me off. Been too long on stage.
Do you have any new books coming out or anything else?
I've got one I'm holding at the moment called The Trouble with Guitars, where I've kind of come up with a construction for the whole book. But I'll see where it goes. I mean, I have to put the photography with it.
Well, thank you for speaking with me. And I will see you in Clearwater in December. And welcome to Florida. Welcome back to Florida.
Well, yeah, great. All right.
You're such a long time.
And I'm still there. So
yeah. All right. Thank you,
Okay.
Andy. Okay.
Take care.
All
All
righty.
right. See you later. Ciao.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Here's Andy Summers performing Circus.
You're listening to Rock at Night.
The introductory song, Get On Down, is from blues artist Billy Bass Alford. Look for his music at ReverbNation.com.